Today we're talking about finger strengthening exercises. Welcome back. Welcome to the studio. My name is Cassie and I'm a professional violist and teaching artist. So today we're going to talk about some finger strengthening exercises for both hands. And before we even get started, we're going to do a little stretch. So you want to put your instrument down somewhere safe. And this stretch is called nerve gliding. I learned this in my undergraduate. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our hand, palm down, and put it flat to the floor like you're making the stop sign. So when you've got that, and I'm using my left arm, I'm gonna turn my head, or tilt it, the other direction, just ever so slightly. And keeping my hand in that stop position, I'm gonna lift my arm very slowly. I'm gonna get to about shoulder height. And when I get there, I'm gonna turn my hand like I'm turning a doorknob. Very gently, just keep your head tilted to the opposite direction. And once you've done that, we're gonna let that go and we're gonna do the other side. So your head's gonna tilt the other direction. You're still making that stop position with your hand. And we're gonna lift up to shoulder height. Now for me, there's always an arm that's worse, that feels a little bit more stiff. Today it's this one. You're gonna get to shoulder height and we're gonna turn sideways. Make sure your head stays tilted to the opposite direction. And we're gonna let that go. Let's try that one more time. So tilt your head the opposite direction. We're gonna take our left arm and lift it to shoulder height, making a stop sign. Right up to shoulder height, and then twist around. Should feel a little bit easier this time. And it's really important you keep your hand in that stop position. And let's do the other side. Tilt your head to the side. Right hand making that stop sign. We'll lift up to shoulder height. And once you get to shoulder height, we're going to twist around. And this should feel a little bit easier too. All right, now that we're all stretched out, and you can do other stretches, I recommend that you do other stretches before you start playing any day, but that's one of my favorite ones. So before we get our instrument back, one of the other exercises we can do to strengthen our finger is we're going to find a flat surface, and I'm just going to use my arm because it's right here. And I'm going to take my hand and pretend that I've got like a ball or an orange underneath it, and I'm going to keep my fingers in that curved position. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift and plop them independently while I keep my other fingers down. It's really important you keep your other fingers down while you do this because we're working on finger independence. So I'm lifting up and resetting down. And while we do this, you just want to make sure that everything stays nice and loose. We're not trying too hard to get this to happen. We're not squeezing anything. Most people find that their ring finger is the most difficult finger to do this on. That might be the case for you. If you're feeling like that's easy, no problem, got that, you can start making patterns. So like I could do finger 1, 3, 2, 4, 4, 3, 1, 2. You could just make up little patterns, and you can do that with both hands. So you can do that with right or left, just working on that finger independence, lifting and setting them independently. And then one more before we get our instruments. This is called a digiflex, and I'll put a link down below for this. This is a great tool for strengthening your hand. So it's basically exactly what we were just doing. It's just individual little pistons you can push down, and they come in different weights. So this one is heavy tension. I think this is like 7 pounds. You can practice doing it independently, both hands. And again, your pinky is probably going to be the hardest one to push down. You could do all fingers together, working on that finger strength. So that's a really great tool. A lot of physical therapists use that tool in their practice to help their patients with strengthening their digits. And we can use it too as instrumentalists. So now that we've warmed up our hands, we're going to get our instruments. And once you have your instrument in playing position, we're going to do kind of the same thing that we did on our arm. We're going to practice lifting and plopping our fingers. So it looks like this. And notice I'm going from my base knuckle, so the knuckle that connects the finger to the hand, that's the one that we're going to use. And I do want to hear the tap. Same thing here, you can make patterns, 1, 3, 2, 4. And you kind of want to pretend like your fingerboard is a hot stove. When you press down, you don't continue to press down. Pretend it's a hot stove. You press and release, press and release. And again, your pinky is probably going to be your weakest finger. Some people won't even be able to hear their pinky when it goes down. They'll have a sound like this. But we really want to work on getting that independence so you can hear your pinky go down. So you can do this with each finger on each string every morning as a warm-up. You can start on the C string, 1, 2, 3, 4. G string, 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 1, 2, 3, 4. A, 1, 2, 3, etc. And you can make little patterns out of that. And that's going to really help develop your finger independence. I often tell my students it's like a baby waves. That's where you can find your base knuckle. So it's that bottom knuckle. I don't want to see you lifting from this knuckle or the middle knuckle. It's that base knuckle where we're going to get most of our power from. Now that we're pretty warmed up, again, we've done our exercises away from the instrument. We've done a few exercises on the instrument. This is more for finger independence than strength, but it's one of my favorite warm-ups. So I'm going to be playing on my G string and my D string as a double stop. And I'm going to be setting and moving each finger independently. So I'm going to play G and D together. Then I set my 1 on the G string. Set my 2 on the G string. Now I'm going to move, while I leave my 2 down, I'm going to move my 1 to the D string. Set my 3 on the G string. Leave my 3, move my 2 to the D string. Set my 4 on the G string. And then set my 3 on the D string. So that was pretty out of tune because I was talking while I was doing it, but let's try it. I'm not going to talk this time. I'll just yell out the fingers. So we're doing double stops. 1, 2, move 1, set 3, move 2, set 4, set 3. You can do the same thing on the next string up. Set 1. Going to really train your fingers to be independent, and I just happen to be doing it in a high 2 pattern, but you could do it in a low 2 pattern, a low 1 pattern. You can make whatever pattern you want out of that just to help your fingers gain a little bit of independence. So we often think about our left hand in terms of finger independence, but your bow hand needs independence as well. So one way to practice that is I'm going to put my bow at the frog, and I'm just going to use my fingers to move back and forth across all 4 strings. So I'm trying to keep my wrist and my elbow as stable as possible and just using my fingers to trace along all 4 strings. It's going to be the most severe angle at the frog. We could also do the same thing setting the bow at the middle. It's a little bit harder here. I'm going to keep a little bit of weight in the string. And really, really difficult at the tip. I mean, almost impossible to do at the tip with just your fingers. You're only going to get a few strings here, but it can be done. Now, away from the instrument, I'm going to put my instrument down, and I'm going to use my hand as kind of like a launch pad and pretend that my bow is a rocket ship. I'm going to use just my fingers to gather the bow up and release it down. This is practicing for the Collé stroke, which I'll demonstrate in just a second. But this is really great for finger independence too. You may, if you've started in elementary school, have done the spider crawl. This is really similar to that. So I'm gathering the bow up and releasing it down. If I didn't have a bow in my hand, it would look like this. Gather up and release down. Gather up, release down. I'll do it sideways so you can see it from here too. Gather up, release down. Gather up and release down. And again, without the bow, it's gather up, release down. Gather up, release down. The down almost feels like you're shaking water off of your hand. You know that feeling where you just let your fingers kind of go limp. So again, you can just practice this with your bow in rocket ship position. Once you've got that, you're going to take back your instrument and we're going to set in the lower half, just a little bit above the frog. And I'm starting in that released finger position, and I'm going to do the gather finger position. So it'll look like an up bow. So it's released fingers, gathered. And I'm going to, as I release, set back on the string. Gather, release onto the string. Gather, release onto the string. So again, that's a really great practice for Collé. We've done the up bow Collé. We can do the down bow Collé too. So you're gonna start in that up bow position and then release down. Gather up, set on the string, release down. Gather up, set on the string, release down. If you want a way to kind of warm up your brain as you're practicing, this is a really great one. We're used to doing a down bow at the frog and an up bow at the tip. So what we can do is the opposite of that. At the frog, I'm going to do that same Collé stroke, but I'm going to do an up bow at the frog, set at the tip, and do a down bow. Set at the frog, up bow, set at the tip, down bow. And we can speed that up. This is really great for practicing a safe landing when you go to the tip too, because it is very difficult to set the bow without it kind of bouncing. So in slow motion, we're doing again up bow, carefully setting, and doing a down bow. And the faster you can do that, it's just kind of a warm up for your brain because it's the opposite of what we are used to. So I hope you found these exercises helpful. By no means is it an exhaustive list of what you could do for finger flexibility, but it just gives you a few ideas of how to integrate these into your warm-up. Especially, I know a lot of people have struggles with collapsing digits on their left hand. So the initial exercises we talked about for the left hand will really help get your muscles around those digits more strengthened. And hopefully that will lead to better intonation, more facile playing. You know the deal. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. Happy practicing.